Anyone who's done indexing knows how difficult, time consuming, how challenging it is. Often you do that kind of work, typography or indexing, whether it's regular indexing of topics, names, and subjects, or whether you're doing scriptural indexing. You do have some technological helps on occasion, especially if you're good with regular expressions or search and find and replace, that kind of stuff. But you're often left at the end of the day with a twitching eye, or you can't see straight and stuff like that. It goes almost without mention. Most people just, there's an index, and they use it when it's there, but they don't always understand what goes into producing these sorts of things in an important book. So tell us what was lacking, at least in the edition that many of us had of Our Reasonable Faith from the 50s, and what kind of work you did in order to put the scriptural index together and how that can benefit people.
Sure. So one of the things that we wanted to do, Ben Dolving and I, back in 2012, 2013, we were the only guys really working for Westminster Seminary Press. The idea was to try to get the press up off the ground, and maybe one way to generate money is to bring stuff that was out of print back into print. And so Ben Dolving's idea was, let's get Our Reasonable Faith up off the ground, but make it a nice study edition. And what was lacking in the 56 Zylstra translation was it was just the text. There was no index at all. And this is such a helpful one volume, systematic theology introduction to kind of a robust understanding of, well, the wonderful works of God, and contemplating him and who he is and what he's done, that we thought if we added an index to this could make what was already a gold mine something helpful as a resource and usefulness for study. So what we did was we did a couple of things. We had to meet with Herman's publishers to secure the rights, and then we had to get it retypeset. There's no point in trying to do a new index before you get it retypeset, because
Yeah.
all your work would be for naught. And so it took a while to get that up off the ground. But then there's the question of how do you index? So we have not just a scripture index, but a subject index as well.
Yeah.
And one thing that you might notice is, the question is, well, how do you come up with all the topics? And for those familiar with the 4-volume edition, a lot of people might not know, but Bavinck did the indices for the 4-volume edition. He came up with the topics and
Oh
stuff like
my.
that. So I figured the best thing to do as a baseline was to take what Bavinck had done with the 4-volume edition and apply it to this. And so I took all the topics that you list in the 4-volume one, and I basically hit Control F, with the searchable PDF. And
Right.
anytime the word came up, um, I also use the concepts. That's what created a little bit extra difficulty. Is I think maybe for a decent index, sometimes when he's talking about the Abrahamic covenant, you just can't hit Control F Abrahamic covenant. There's other things, words or concepts that might be used. So it just took a while. But the index that you see in the back is substantively from the 4-volume edition. So it reflects Bavinck's own thought processes on his own work, rather than me just trying to superimpose or come up with random topics or things like
Sure.
that.
What did that do to you? This is going to sound like a weird question, but how did that change you? Because when you work on a book like that as an editor or an indexer, you know the book so much more intimately than just
Right.
reading it. So how would you say that changed you, or changed your understanding, or really kind of, I don't know, ended up forming you?
Well, the book was already been so formative for me to begin with, as I already talked about the time with Carl Truman and some of the other guys at Cornerstone as we worked through the book. But now, as I've entered into the pastor, I've been a pastor here for about 3.5 years. I'm a mile down the road from Wheaton College, and we've got a lot of college students. And you know, this is roughly a 7-year project that it took to get from um, to publication when it came out last December. And you can't really log in the number of hours that come over the course of that time. And so what I had requested from the seminary was, rather than getting paid, is if I could get as many complimentary copies as they'd be willing to give me.
So
Uh,
Charles is the reason why it's back ordered, is really
yeah,
what we're saying here. So,
right, exactly. And so they gave me, I got 30 copies from them for us to give to our college students, because that was the entire purpose of this, was not to make a living off of something that's very tedious and menial. I never want to put together another index again as long as I live. Uh, but for this project, knowing that the fruit of it would be I'd get 30 copies to give to college students. This is such a great introduction uh, for people. I mean, it's intended for anybody. You know, Bavinck wrote a number of books that were intended as I think Scott Swain refers to it as the catechetical trilogy. You know, Sacrifice of Praise, Saved by Grace, and now the Wonderful Works of God, each with its different emphases and focus. But to give this, put this in the hands of college students as a basic resource. You know, I got my copies 2 days before our college students went home for Christmas break, and I've gotten a couple emails from our students saying, "I've been reading a chapter a day, and this has been incredibly helpful."
Good.
You know, something that Craig Troxel and I had been doing has been meeting with the college student typically every Friday for a while, and just them saying they wanted something a little bit more substantive theologically than what they were getting in their Bible classes, even here at Wheaton. And so we've been meeting on a regular basis with them. And at one point, we were getting 20, 25 students at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Um, and so just giving this book to them, you know, to help them and shape their life and understanding of what does it mean to be a believer. You know, it's we think of introductory Christian books in terms of, you know, something, you know, like a tract or something 40 or 50 pages long. But when you recognize that Calvin's Institutes was an introduction to the Christian faith, or Bavinck's Wonderful Works of God, you know, the subtitle is an instruction in the Christian religion according to the Reformed Confession. It's meant to be something of an introductory resource. And I've given my parents copies as well. And, you know, it's, you know, here we are a century later. And I feel like even for myself, I'm in over my head reading this, just recognizing how far we've fallen, kind of maybe pedagogically. Just as clear as Bavinck is in articulating a particular, he always talks about the twin errors of atheism and deism on the one side and polytheism and pantheism on the other side, that we have to carve out a confession that avoids, you know, identifying God with the world, or so separating God from the world that they're totally inseparable.